night, everybody. I am happy to have all of you here today. We will be getting into Revelation chapter 20. And before we get into Revelation 20, I just want to recap some of the things that we saw in Revelation 19, because Revelation 19 relates to Revelation 20. I think, when the book was written, there were no chapters. So Revelation 19 went straight into Revelation 20. And I would try to go slow tonight, because in this chapter, there is so much doctrine that is important for all of us to know and to understand. And a lot of churches do not teach this. So I would like to go slowly and take my time so that you will be able to follow with me. So I am going back to Revelation chapter 19, and I hope everybody could see my slide. I am starting from Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. And this is where it all started. John said, "And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war." We said that this is the second time that heaven is open. The first time it was open was in Revelation chapter 4, verse 1. And when heaven was open in Revelation 4, verse 1, it was an invitation for John to come into heaven. The second time, which is Revelation 19, verse 11, when heaven is open, it's an exit entrance. We cannot see what is taking place in heaven. So heaven was open, a white horse. He that sat on it, on the horse, was called Faithful and True. I am not going into every verse. I'm just giving you a synopsis of the chapter, of the last part. The second thing I want you to remember is that the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, and they were clothed in fine linen, white and clean. I told you that the armies of heaven, or which were in heaven, that is following the white horse and the rider, which is Jesus Christ, was made up of two sets of creatures. One, it was made up of humans, which is us, who will be raptured at the beginning of the fourth chapter in Revelation. And we will be spending 7 years in heaven, and we will be coming back with Christ at the Battle of Armageddon. And the second part of that army is the angels in heaven, or at least some of the angels in heaven. And I showed you that in Revelation chapter 12, that Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. So Michael commands an army, the archangel Michael commands an army in heaven. So this army is a combination of humans and angels. And I told you it is a little funny to see people going to fight a war, but they are clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And I just think that's a little strange. However, we're not going to fight. The Lord is going to do the fighting for us. And then there's the other side of the battle. John said in chapter 19, verse 19, "And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army." So what I am showing you here is at the Battle of Armageddon, you have Christ and his army, and you have the beast and his army. Now the leaders of the beast army will be the beast himself, who is the Antichrist, the false prophet who worked side by side with the Antichrist and Satan himself. So the army on earth has three leaders, and it is the ungodly trinity. It will be the devil, it will be the Antichrist, and it will be the false prophet. And I showed you last day that in 1990, there were 40 nations, approximately 40 nations that gathered in the Middle East, and approximately 1 million soldiers. So it is quite possible. This is not a fantasy. It is quite possible that this army will gather on earth. Now, one thing I did not stress, and I should have, was that this army with the beast and the false prophet and Satan, they were not coming to fight against Jesus. Jesus was no way in the picture. They were coming to annihilate Israel. They were going to wipe Israel out of the face of the earth. That was their purpose. And you remember we talked about the middle of the tribulation period, when the part of Israel had to run to Petra and they were hiding. Okay, this is because they were persecuted by the Antichrist and the false prophet and Satan himself. So let's go on. This is the stage that is set for the Battle of Armageddon. Now remember, they did not originally come to fight against Christ. They came to destroy Israel as the nation. Now, this here is Matthew 24, 16 through 18. Then let them which be in Judah flee into the mountain. Let him that which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Now this is the words of Jesus. This should have been in red. This is the words of Jesus. And he was telling the people who live in Judah to flee into the mountains. That is to flee into Petra. We saw that whole story in Revelation chapter 12. So this is what or who the Antichrist was after. Now, look at this verse. This is Matthew chapter 23, verse 37 through 39. To set the scene, Jesus was sitting on the mount, I believe it was Mount Olives, and he was looking over to Jerusalem, and he wept as he looked over Jerusalem, and he said, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophet, and stonest them which were sent unto thee. How often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicken under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left desolate. This is when Israel had to run from Judah or run from Israel and hide in Petra. And look at verse 39. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So Jesus is telling Jerusalem, you will not see me again, ever, until you say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So what was happening in Petra at that time was the Jews were being killed. The Jews were being annihilated. And they cried out to Jehovah, and they asked him to send Messiah. They were ready to accept Messiah. They were ready to accept Jesus because they realized that they made a mistake, that Jesus had come already. And this is the point where Jesus came busting through the sky, and Jesus was angry. Jesus was furious. He said, I trampled the grapes in my fury, and the blood splashed as high as the horse's bridle. And this is why when Jesus was coming to the battle of Armageddon, his clothes was dipped in blood, because the Jews realized that they were going to be annihilated, and they called on Jehovah to send Jesus, to send Messiah. And they said, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. And that is when Jesus came to deliver them. This is what was happening at the Battle of Armageddon, because the Antichrist and the false prophet, they were there to completely annihilate the Jews. And when they cried out for Yeshua HaMashiach, he came and he delivered them. But at that time, 2 out of 3 were dying. That is the point when Christ came and the Battle of Armageddon took place and Jesus delivered them. So this is something that I should have stressed last time, and now I'm doing it. So you understand. Now, at the end, I told you the 2 armies that will be fighting. Jesus on the white horse, the army in heaven. The beast and the false prophet and Satan and his army. So they originally were there to annihilate the Jews. But when the Jews called on Messiah, he came. So they all turned their attention to him that sit on the horse. They all was ready to fight against Christ himself. And this is the result. This chapter, this verse, Revelation 19, verse 20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought the miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and them that worship the image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So at the end of that battle, 2 of the leaders were captured, the beast and the false prophet. And I told you that they are 2 human beings, and they will be from the valley of Megiddo. They will go straight into the lake of fire alive. And this is where chapter 19 ends, where the beast and the false prophet were captured, and they were cast alive into the lake of fire. So we will continue our lesson in Revelation 20 from this point on. I think that's a nice little background so you know what is taking place. Now, if you can see my faded picture, you will see an angel, and this angel have a chain in his hand. He has a big chain in his hand, a great chain in his hand, and keys, or 1 key. All right, he has a chain in his hand and 1 key. And John said, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Now we have seen this exact verse played out 3 times in the book of Revelation. The first time this played out was in Revelation chapter 10, verse 1. And John said, and I saw a mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with the cloud, and a rainbow on his head. And he put 1 foot on the ocean and 1 foot on the land. And he cried with a loud voice, time will be no more. But that was a mighty angel. Then we saw again in Revelation chapter 18, verse 1. After these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven. And the earth was filled with his glory and stuff like that. In this instant, this is just a regular angel coming down from heaven. This angel, he have the keys of the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hands. So he is occupied with 2 things. He have the key to the bottomless pit, and he have a great chain in his hand. Now we understand that Jesus is the one who possesses all the keys in the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 1 verse 19, Jesus possessed the keys of hell and death. He said, I am he that was alive and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and have the keys of hell and of death. And it is important to notice the order in which he said it. He said that he have the keys of hell first, and then the key of death. Then in Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, Jesus was talking to the church at Philadelphia. He said, I have the key of David, meaning that he have access to the treasures that David had and the revelation that David had. So the fact that this angel had to come down with the key, now pay attention, this is a regular angel, a normal angel, no mighty angel and stuff like that. A regular angel, he have the key to the bottomless pit. That means the bottomless pit is locked. I think this is the second time that the bottomless pit is locked, because in fact, will be open, because the first time is to put the creatures in there, and then they lock it, and then we will see again where the bottomless pit is open. So bear in mind that this angel came down with the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Now we have seen a similar situation like this in Revelation chapter 9. Now I will be going back and forth, and I will try to do it as slowly and as clearly as possible. Now we have seen this scenario took place before. Revelation chapter 9 verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven onto the earth, and to him was given the key, again one key, of the bottomless pit. Now we talked about this before, and we said when you see the word star in the book of Revelation, you have to interpret it in context with what they are talking about. And the example that I gave you is that in Revelation chapter 1, Jesus had 7 stars in his hands. The 7 stars represents the 7 angels, who in turn represents the 7 pastors of the 7 churches. Then we saw in Revelation chapter 12 that the woman was clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and she had a crown with 12 stars. The 12 stars represented the 12 tribes of Israel. And then when we came to this chapter, I told you this is better interpreted, the star which had fallen from heaven onto the earth. And to him is a person was given the key. He did not have the key to the bottomless pit. It was given to him. And this is none other than Satan himself. So he was able to open the bottomless pit. And when he opened the bottomless pit, which he did, he opened the bottomless pit, verse 2, there arose a smoke out of the pit, and the smoke as the smoke of a great furnace. And you'll remember that out of the smoke came the locusts. And they had, the face of a man, the hair of a woman, and they stayed on the earth for 5 months, and they were tormenting the men who had the mark of the beast. That was their purpose. So this gave us a clue as to what is in the bottomless pit. It's like a furnace. It's like a great furnace. It would probably be heated or very hot. The smoke was so much that it blocked the sun out. And living in the bottomless pit were demon locusts. So the bottomless pit is a prison. It's a prison for demons. Let's go on. Now you remember this in Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. So the locusts that came out of the bottomless pit, they had a king, and their king was the angel of that bottomless pit, who opened the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, and in the Greek tongue had his name Apollyon. That both means destroyer. So they were organized and they were living in the bottomless pit. Let's go on. And the beast that thou sawest was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So we are talking about what is living in the bottomless pit. The beast that thou sawest, which is the Antichrist, but in this case, in this verse, Revelation chapter 17, verse 8, the beast that thou sawest was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. We did not see this event taking place. We were told about this event. And maybe this beast came out when the locust came out, or maybe this beast will come out later. But this is the spirit that possesses the Antichrist. Where did this spirit come from? The bottomless pit. So we had the locust, the demon locust that came out of the bottomless pit. We had the smoke that came out of the bottomless pit. And now we have the spirit of the Antichrist that came out of the bottomless pit. So this is what is living in the bottomless pit. And we did not do any study on the bottomless pit previously. So let's take a look as to what the bottomless pit is all about. I showed you this diagram last week. We are going to spend a few minutes and we will go through it thoroughly. Now, this line here that I'm highlighting is the surface of the earth. That is the ground that we walk on. This line here is 6 feet under the earth. It's the grave. This is where humans are being buried. That would mean the bottomless pit is deep under the earth. Let me do this over. The bottomless pit is all the way down here. Now, some diagrams might be a little different, but the principle is the same. This here is a shaft that goes all the way down the earth. If this is 6 feet, then this shaft is way down inside the earth. I want you to get that. This is the surface. This is inside the grave, 6 feet. So this will be very deep under the earth. Now look at this. This here is what we call Hades. This whole area is called Hades. Let me see if I could write this. This is Hades. What you will notice is Hades has 2 compartments. This is under the earth. 2 compartments. One is known as paradise and one is known as hell. Hell and Hades is the same thing. Between paradise and hell is a great gulf. You will see it right here, a great gulf. We got this from the story of Lazarus and the rich man. You remember the rich man died and he went to Hades, which is hell. And then Lazarus died and he was in Abraham's bosom. Paradise is also known as Abraham's bosom. The rich man lifted up his eyes and he saw the poor man or the beggar in paradise in Father Abraham's bosom. And he said, Father Abraham, he made him out. He said, Father Abraham, could you send Lazarus so that he can dip the tip of his finger in some water, that he may cool my tongue? Father Abraham said, there is a great gulf between us. This is the gulf here. And Lazarus cannot come there, and you cannot come here neither. So this is Hades, this is hell, this is paradise. Now we are talking about before Jesus died on the cross. I should have stressed this before. We are talking about before Jesus died on the cross. All of this is Hades. And when people like Abraham, Isaac, Moses, Aaron, David, when all those people died, this is where they used to go. This is where the righteous used to go. When sinners died, this is where they used to go. And they still do. This section here is where they still go. Now, follow with me. Jesus died on the cross. When Jesus died on the cross, his body was in the tomb. His soul went down to hell. So some of you might say, what? Yes, Jesus went down to hell because we deserve to go to hell. And if Jesus paid the price for us, the price for sin was not only what he endured at the cross. He actually had to go down to hell. He went down first. And you'll find that in the scriptures. However, this is not a complete study. I'm giving you an idea so that you will follow along Revelation chapter 20. Now, when Jesus finished in hell, he went to paradise. And he set all these guys free, and he took them up to heaven. I want you to remember that. And you can do some more research on that, and you will find that to be true. Now, the bottomless pit. Like I told you, there's a great shaft coming through the middle of the earth, and the lowest part of that shaft is called the bottomless pit. And the reason why it is called the bottomless pit is because it's the lowest part of that shaft. Along that shaft, you have an entrance to hell, you have an entrance to paradise. Now today, paradise is empty. Let me draw a line here. It is now empty after Christ's resurrection. Nobody is in paradise under the earth. When you go to paradise, you go up to heaven to paradise. However, hell is still the place for everybody who died outside of Jesus. Everybody who died outside of Jesus, starting from Cain, come all the way through history, and everybody who will die during the tribulation period outside of Jesus is in this place here, Hades. We will visit that a little later. But today we are talking right now about the bottomless pit. Bottomless pit, the bottomless pit is the deepest part of that shaft under the earth. So I want you to remember that. This is where the spirit of Antichrist came out. This is where the locust came out. I hope you're following that. Now, Jesus said, I am he that liveth, I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of hell and of death. He conquered hell first, and then he conquered death when he was resurrected. That is why he said, I have the keys of hell and of death. All right, and then we will see some other scriptures concerning this as we go along. Let's continue. We just finished verse 1 in Revelation 20. Now in this picture, you will see the dragon. The dragon is bound and he is being thrown into the bottomless pit. Verse 2, and he, that is the angel lay hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So this is the first time we see in the phrase, or there might be a better word for that. It will come to me before we finish. 1,000 years. This is the first time we are seeing 1,000 years. But the angel did two things. He laid hold of the dragon and he bound him. He laid hold of the dragon and he bound him for 1,000 years. Let's go on. Verse, you would remember this. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. And the dragon was cast out. This is when the dragon was cast out from heaven. That old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out onto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. This is at the middle of the tribulation period, when there was the war in heaven, with Michael and his army against the dragon and his army, and the devil was cast out from heaven. So what I want you to notice here is the exact same name. The great dragon, that old serpent, the devil, and Satan is the exact same person who is bound in Revelation chapter 20 and cast into the bottomless pit. But what I want you to pay attention to is which deceive the whole world. This is important. Pay attention to this. He was cast out, and he is the one who deceives the whole world. We will come back to that. Revelation 20, verse 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up. So remember, in verse 2, he lay hold of the dragon and he bound him. In verse 3, he cast him into the bottomless pit, that pit that I just showed you, and he shut him up, and he set a seal upon him. I tell you that angel did a number on the dragon. He cast him, he lay hold on him, he bound him, he cast him into the bottomless pit, he shut him up, and he set a seal upon him. Why? That he should deceive the nations no more. They could add another name to Satan here. He is the deceiver. Okay, he is the deceiver. So, and the angel did all of this so that he would deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. This is the second time we see 1,000 years. And after that, he must be loose for a little season. He must be loose for a little season. This means if Satan is bound, if Satan is cast into the bottomless pit, if Satan is shut up, if Satan have a seal on him and he cannot deceive the nations, then the earth will be absent from the influence of Satan for 1,000 years. Imagine the earth with no evil intentions for 1,000 years. Let's go on. This is a picture of the devil being cast into the bottomless pit. All right. Now I want you to see what is taking place here. And the beast was taken, and we dealt with this earlier, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him. These two were cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, burning with brimstone. So I told you there were three leaders at the battle of Armageddon: the beast, the false prophet, and Satan. Two of them were cast into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And then the second one was cast into the bottomless pit. He was cast into the bottomless pit and will stay there for 1,000 years. So all three leaders will be in prison. Let's go on. Now I just showed you this, and I showed you the bottomless pit where the dragon is cast in, and you can see him right here. He will be in the bottomless pit. And this here is the lake of fire. It is a separate place. It is the final place of abode. So far, I've shown you where hell is, where paradise was. Paradise is where the righteous dead would wait for judgment. Hell is where the sinners will wait for judgment. The bottomless pit is where the devil will be locked up. It's a prison. And then the lake of fire is the final place of abode. I would repeat this until I hope you understand it. Now there's another place that I'm not talking about, Tartarus. Tartarus is another prison for fallen angels. Some people believe it is a separate place from the bottomless pit. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. However, both of them are prisons. So we are not going to deal with Tartarus in this lesson. Let's go on. Now, the first three verses in Revelation chapter 20 deals with the capture of the dragon and the imprisonment of the dragon. We are in verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. Now, this is a total different story. And this here represents 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ. 1,000 years in one verse, or one part of a verse. This is not even the whole verse. John said he saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. So you have a number of questions here. Who are these people sitting on these thrones? What does the thrones mean? This is Christ setting up his government on the face of the earth. And who are they that sit on the thrones? It is us who came back, his army that came back with him when heaven opened. Heaven opened, you remember, and the white horse and the army which was in heaven followed him upon white horses with white linen and fine linen and stuff like that. They are the ones who will be sitting on these thrones, and judgment is given unto them. So during that 1,000 years, with the absence of Satan, Christ is going to set up thrones on earth, and he is going to allow us Christians to sit on the throne and judge and really to govern the people living on the earth. So then you should have a question by now. Where are these people coming from after the tribulation period? Now you remember 1/4 of the world population was killed, and 1/3 of the world population was killed, and then men died left, right, and center. But not everybody is going to die. Not everybody will die during that tribulation period. The Bible never said that. If there's 8 billion, who knows? Maybe 5 billion might die. But on the earth, there will be people remaining. And around this time, when Jesus is setting up his thrones, he is going to separate the sheep nations from the goat nations. And he is going to, I think we will deal with that in a separate lesson. But the thrones are set up. His people is going to be sitting on the throne. So they do have people to judge, and they do have people, human beings. Now remember, the people who came from heaven, they are human beings, but they have glorified bodies. So we will have glorified bodies when we come back with the Lord. But there will be humans living on the earth after the tribulation period for that 1,000 years. Let's go on. Now, this was a promise made by Jesus in Revelation chapter 2, verse 26 and 27. And he made this promise to the church at Thyatira. He said, he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over nations. He promised that in Revelation chapter 2. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As a vessel of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I receive of my Father. Jesus received the authority to rule with a rod of iron. Jesus is sharing that authority with his people. He promised them that in Revelation chapter 2, and that is the church at Thyatira. And then he is going to fulfill that promise 7 years later at the beginning of the tribulation period. So they will be ruling with Jesus for that 1,000 years. Now look at the other group. And I saw the souls of them which were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God. So that is two different groups of people. Those who came back with Jesus, and then those who were beheaded for Jesus. Now remember, what I want you to pay attention to is how they died. They died because they were beheaded. And I saw the souls of them which were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God. So let us take a look at this group of people from the very beginning. But before, let me finish out this verse. Which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither received his mark upon their forehead or in their hand, and they lived, those who were beheaded, they lived, and they reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. This is the third time we are seeing 1,000 years mentioned in Revelation chapter 20. Those who were beheaded for Jesus and for the testimony that they held, they lived. What does this mean? This means that they were resurrected. They retained their body that they once lost at the beginning of the tribulation period. So let us take a look and see where they started. You'll remember in Revelation chapter 6, we first saw these people. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them which were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So this group of people that we are now seeing in Revelation chapter 20, they started way back at the beginning of the tribulation period. And their souls, now remember I showed you in the diagram, the souls of the unsaved, it goes to Hades, it goes to hell. In this verse, the souls of those who were beheaded for Jesus Christ went up to heaven under the altar. And the reason why they are under the altar is because it's an altar of sacrifice. They sacrifice their life. Today, you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ in your heart, you confess him with your mouth, you shall be saved. During the tribulation period, you want to be saved, you have to be slain for the word of God, because you didn't accept Jesus today. Let's go on. And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said that unto them that they should rest yet a little, for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were. How were they killed? They were beheaded for Jesus. This is the first time in the book of Revelation that we see the tribulation saints. the first time, and they were beheaded for Jesus. And this group was the first group that we saw in the book of Revelation, and they were told to wait a little bit, rest a little bit, because there's a whole lot more coming. A whole lot more coming. Let's go on. We saw them again in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. After this, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude that no man could number, of all nation and kindred and people and tongue. So this is worldwide, a great multitude. Nobody could number it. This is how many people will be killed for Jesus. And they stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and palms in their hands. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and from whence came they, or where did they come from? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, these are they which came out of the great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Now notice, he said, the great tribulation. The great tribulation is the second part of the tribulation period. So there will be countless people who will die for Christ during the tribulation period. We see them in Revelation chapter 20, and they live with Christ. One more. Revelation chapter 15, verse 2. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over his number, the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. So this was the second to last time we saw them, but I want to draw your attention to this. Them that had gotten victory over the beast. How did they get victory over the beast? They were beheaded. Now we as humans, we see death as sad. God sees death as victory. All these people were killed because of Jesus, but God said, no, they had victory over the beast. And then in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, and I saw thrones, and them that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. I said, this represents us. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God. This is two different groups here, and they will be going through the 1,000 years reign with Christ on earth. Two different sets of people. Let's go on. But the rest of the dead, we saw the first set that died, which is the Christians. They were beheaded, but the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So we are entering new territory right now. This is the first resurrection. So what is the first resurrection? What does he mean by the rest of the dead? The rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So let us take a look at the rest of the dead. Again, Revelation chapter 6, verse 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed upon him, and followed with him, and power was given unto them over a fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, to kill with hunger, to kill with death, and to kill with the beast of the field. And look at Revelation 9, verse 18. And these three was the third part, by these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire, by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouth. So we see 1/4 of the world population being killed, and we see 1/3 of the population being killed. This is what it means by the rest of the dead live not until the 1,000 years. So those who were beheaded for Jesus Christ will raise from the dead at the beginning of the millennial kingdom, or the beginning of the 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead will live after the 1,000 years. Now, I realize this is a lot of information I'm giving you, so that's why I'm trying to go slow. Now, back to this diagram. All the dead souls, all the souls of those who die during the tribulation period outside of Jesus Christ will be in here. All of them will be here waiting for their resurrection. All of them will be waiting for their resurrection. Now, let's go on. Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. This is the 5th time we see the 1,000 years mentioned. Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. What is the first resurrection? And now we are introduced to another term, the second death. You don't hear preachers preaching too much about the second death, because not too many preachers preach the book of Revelation. What is the second death? So let me see what we can do here. All right. Let me talk about the second death for a minute. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit say unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. He shall not be hurt of the second death. Jesus is talking to the church at Smyrna, and he was telling them, if you overcome, you will not be hurt in the second death. This is the first time the term the second death is mentioned in the book of Revelation. He that overcometh, to him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcome and am set down with my Father in his throne. This is 2 promises that was made to the churches. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because Jesus made promises to us, and Jesus is fulfilling the promise to us. Promises made, promises fulfilled. Jesus promised that if we are faithful unto the end, we shall not be hurt in the second death. Jesus promised if we overcome, we will sit with him in his throne. We shall reign with him. This is what the verse in Revelation chapter 20 was telling us. Now look at this. And he made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. It is our birthright that if we are in Christ, and if we are faithful to Christ, we will not be hurt in the second death. We will sit with him on his throne, and we shall be kings and priests. Not everybody is going to be kings. Not everybody is going to be priests, but we shall all reign with him on earth. Now, I would like to finish the first resurrection. I think that would be a little too much. I think I would leave it at this point, because I